Hey, welcome back everybody. Lawler here with some more power rankings for you guys this week. It is going to be Europe power rankings today as we have officially wrapped up week 7 of the grid. Some exciting results to kind of have some contrast to last week, but ultimately it feels like more of the same. But there's some things that I need to bring up to date. Number one, because it has been 2 weeks since the regional, I have removed some of the teams from the power rankings. But again, ultimately, any of the teams that you find in the standings should be ones in consideration. I'm basically putting 10 as like that gatekeeper team, the team that you technically could be removed from this spot very easily, but you are there to gatekeep out the teams below you. So again, 10 is not a solidified option. They are a team that, again, this week is going to have some justification to it. But again, ultimately, 10 can move and match anywhere. Other thing to look at is we do have the standings for both the regionals as well as the grid. Any of the teams that you see in green are automatically guaranteed to make it into that next stage. So if you look at the EU standings for RLCS X, BDS, Blokes, Giants, and Vitality have automatically secured their way into the international major technically. In this case, it is going to be the EU regional that is worth double points at the middle of next month. So again, that's what these mean. If you see the green or anything, that's something to keep in mind. All these are pulled from Liquipedia. If you guys do have any questions, comments, or concerns about the video, or if you're thinking that my power rankings are completely unjustified, that is fair as well. Let me know down below. All right, with that said, let's begin. This is going to start off a little bit interesting, and I know there's been a lot of arguments about this team about where they should be, and you guys kind of know my feelings on it, but I do think because it has been 2 weeks, they are deservingly in this spot. Going to be putting Oxygen in at number 10. This is kind of an interesting one, and I've been going back and forth about this. Because I make power rankings every single week, I want to have, obviously, a little bit of recency bias due to the fact that we don't have a regional event as consistently as we do have the grid for 9 weeks straight. And power rankings are supposed to be at the current moment up to as much information as possible. And even though I still don't think, or I still believe that regional should be weighted much heavier, if we are going to go and consider, and at least I guess try to be consistent with the recency bias, Oxygen has to be in that consideration. Again, they make top 8 twice, both times, again, semifinals. And all the teams that are in Europe do know that they should fear Oxygen. The reason why I can't put them above 10th, though, despite those results being where they are, is they have yet to make regionals. And with regionals coming up this weekend, that is why they're in that gatekeeper or that chopping block spot. If they do not make it into stage 2 or towards the top 8, then again, Oxygen, I'm going to have to remove you from this and give it to teams like Magnifico, Barrage, Fadeaway are kind of the 3 teams that come to mind of ones that have shown performances, even though Magnifico does not qualify for the regionals this time around. But you look at teams like Endpoint, Singularity, Triple Trouble, all these teams should be in conversation of this. But again, because Fadeaway and Barrage, we have not seen them for 2 weeks, it is hard to be like, yep, they're guaranteed. They're these top tier teams. And I do think there needs to be some respect on it, but it feels very weird giving a power ranking in the top 8 to teams that we haven't seen perform in 2 weeks. Not that it's their fault, but I look at the field, I guess, because for some reason EU puts a lot of weight in the field as compared to putting emphasis on scrims like NA does. But even in the field, there's some pretty awkward results. Nameless is super high up there. Some teams don't even compete in it. I don't know. It's hard for me to justify with the field. So again, this power ranking is very difficult to do for Europe because of the way that honestly Oxygen screws it all up. If Oxygen would just perform in regionals, this would be super easy, but they don't. So here we are. Either way, Oxygen, really solid team. Performances are there. They're my gatekeeper team. Hopefully that explanation satisfies you guys. Probably not, but that's what I'm going with. At number 9 is going to be Team Liquid, moving up a spot. Even though Liquid hasn't had the greatest results over the past week and a half, they have had some decent moments. They are losing to strength of schedule quite a bit. A lot of the teams and the opponents they come up against are some of the top dogs. But ultimately, they are still making efforts to make it into top 8, and they're kind of just teetering. Sometimes they're top 8, sometimes they almost make semifinals, and other times they fall quite a bit short. So I think it's a good place for them. They're not quite top 8 because they can't consistently make it into the quarterfinals or the playoff stages, but they do get there sometimes. So kind of in that weird in between. At number 8, and this is where that recency bias comes into play a little bit, is going to be the Monkeys. Recently, they have added the addition of Archie to their team. Taz is now playing with Nameseekers, but Archie's addition has definitely been felt. Not the most recent week, but in week 6, they do end up making top 8. and that was kind of the first time ever that they've gotten into that position. The following week, which is our most recent weekend on Thursday, if you guys didn't get to stop by my stream over at twitch.tv/Lawler, you can find a link in the description. And then we'll be covering this tomorrow, or technically today when this video comes out, because the grid schedule is all amok. The grid schedule is getting pushed ahead, even though this is a bit of a sidetrack, because of trying to make room for the regionals and making sure that it basically equals out to 10 weeks total, is what Gibbs said in his video. So we are going to be having the grid for Europe today. So when this video comes out, as soon as you're done watching it, if you could watch so kindly, leave your comments, thumbs up, all that fun stuff, and then hop over to my stream. You will see the monkeys making another run, and they ended up going all the way to the grand finals in week number 7. They ended up beating Vitality at the very beginning and then make it all the way through their matches. They beat the likes of Oxygen, Top Blokes, a bunch of really solid rosters along the way, and end up at the grand finals and get swept by Resurgence of Vitality, I guess, where Vitality, for somehow, this is the second time they've done it, dropped to the lowers very early on, battle all the way back, get that momentum, and then end up winning in the end. So the monkeys, a team that I wanted to see, okay, was last week a fluke? Is getting top 8 going to be a mistake? No. They do it, and they do it in fashion, and they do it over very, very tough rosters. So congrats to the monkeys, showing good performances, making it all the way to the grand finals for the first time. That's a big deal, and it obviously shows in the results from basically being one of the first teams out like chalked, and now they're tied for 10th in the points overall of the grid. So congrats to them. Going to be a lot of fun tomorrow/today, technically when this video comes out, watching their run. But Archie's edition definitely felt they still struggle playstyle wise against teams that know how to slow it down, and in this case Vitality really showcase what they can do. The big benefit though to getting that top seed or that second seed in the grid last week is this week they actually get a first round bye. They will automatically move into the qualifier match because Chalked has forfeited, and they don't have to win it, so they get the free forfeit and move on into the qualifier match. Pretty big deal for the monkeys. Number 7 is going to be Solary, a team that I don't think gets the credit they deserve. They are one that kind of goes under the radar, but if you look at their results and their matches as of late, they put up a pretty good fight and get pretty good results with it. In week 7, they do have a really rough time where they end up losing right away to Triple Trouble, but then ultimately go and lose to Giants as well. And I think a lot of this one just had to do with the schedule. They end up dropping down low, and then they don't have another match that's supposed to be their easier match of the day in that lower round 1 because they get a forfeit. They basically come in cold to a heated up Giants that just got a really good match against Guild. So Giants ends up winning, and I do think Giants is the better team. But the previous week before that, Solary actually had some pretty good results, beating both Giants and Vitality in sweeps, and then they make it into the quarterfinals until they ultimately go to 7 and lose to a really hot looking Barcelona. So again, I think Solary has had some good results. They still struggle against the teams above them, where they just can't get those big notable wins against the likes of teams like Barcelona, against Guild, Vitality, etc. But they do show they can compete against those rosters. It's not going to be consistent where I'm going to be like, Solary versus Vitality, you know, Solary beat them last time, I'm going to give them that. It's just not going to happen. I'm still going to give the lead and the nod to Vitality in predictions, but the fact that Solary is making me reconsider it is part of the reason why they are in the place that they are. Something you guys may notice, the fact that Fadeaway and Barrage are not here, and this is kind of that explanation I had at the beginning of the video, and that just simply has to do with, I haven't seen you in 2 weeks, I don't know how to predict you. I still think you're very good rosters. I think you should still be in the conversation, but you got a little bit asterisk next to your name due to the fact that it's been 2 weeks. 2 weeks in Rocket League, 2 weeks in any esport is a very long time. We've seen the parity that comes with these grid performances, and if it's been 2 weeks, now moving on to the third, it is very difficult to consider them. So again, they are part of that kind of like 5 or 6 teams like Singularity, Triple Trouble, etc., that all could be in this conversation and definitely should be in consideration. So again, not to throw any shade or anything like that at them, it just makes it very hard to power rank when I haven't seen you in half a month. At number 6 is going to be Barcelona, moving down a spot this week. And partially just due to the results of the teams above them. Barcelona, again, I think is a team that had a really shaky start, really rough at the very beginning. They gave us some like false sense of security in the first regional, and then had a couple off weeks. And then as Archie has found his form, he's felt more comfortable. You're starting to see Diva wake up. But Ronicky has really held down the fort, and you still see Barcelona put up fights against every team. They do go to the semifinals in week 6, but in week 7 they did struggle, losing to Oxygen as well as Triple Trouble. So they don't even qualify top 8. And the other team that we've kept our eye on right next to them, which is going to give us number 5, is actually going to be Guild here. Guild is a team that is just basically swapping spots. Both these teams are kind of that base. I think both these teams are really good, middle of the pack teams. They still struggle against some of the big dogs, but against each other, they can beat the guys below them. But against the guys in the very top, in the top 4, they just have some difficulties. The reason why I'm giving Guild, though, is due to results on this one. They do make quarterfinals both times in the grid. They have Guild losing to Vitality, and then in the previous week, Guild loses to Top Lokes. Both these teams either went on to win it or went to the semifinals. So I do think Guild had a little bit difficulty in the strength of schedule on this one. And they have better results ultimately. Still think Barcelona's a really good team, but Guild most recently has had the better performances. Top 4 gets a little bit weird as always, but I'll have some justification, especially for number 1 and number 2. But at number 4 is going to be a drop down here for Giants Gaming. The team that has been showing probably as the most consistent across the board has actually had some struggles in the past week. And I only say struggles because of the expectations they've set for us. If you take a look at week 7, you look at where Giants is, and they do make it to the quarterfinals. That's nothing new. But they do drop to Top Lokes. This is a team where previously I would think that almost every single time Giants would get the nod. But some things to update you guys as well about roster changes. Number 1, Archie will not be playing in the grid. He was in chat and actually gave us an explanation. They have already qualified for regionals, as you guys can see, so they aren't taking it as serious. Their coach in Rams does want to give Emre some kind of play time, give him some exposure just in case, to give him some love. And because Archie is also dealing with schools and regionals coming up on the weekend, he is going to be letting schoolwork take priority, letting Emre play, and then they are also going to still be playing with Archie when it comes to regionals. So just want to give you guys a heads up if you're looking at predictions and stuff for today. I do expect Top Lokes to still make it possibly to the qualifier match, but I do not expect them to qualify because of the sub. But Giants Gaming making the loss happen here. The exciting thing about it, though, is that Top Lokes does have the 1 game advantage coming in from the uppers in their head-to-head. So it is technically 3-3. I think 3 and 4 could technically be tied. I think Top Lokes and Giants are roughly about the same spot, ultimately, fighting for that bronze medal. I don't know if you guys like the colors on the side for like the podium finish stuff. I just think it's an easier way to visually notice it. So, again, I think Giants, and at the number 3 spot, because I just spoiled it, is going to be Top Lokes. I think Top Lokes just has the better results recently and the head-to-head. If you look at the previous week in week 6 of the grid, Top Lokes does go to the grand finals and ultimately goes 4-3 the distance against BDS. That was a really good series, probably one of my favorites so far of the grid this season, where they're super close. It comes down to 1 goal at the very end, and they almost had it. So you're talking the difference there, while Giants doesn't even make top 8. So, again, Top Lokes looking really good. Last but not least, I'm actually going to pair 1 and 2 together, not only to make it a little bit more difficult on my editor. I'm sure he's throwing some jokes somewhere in this area. But also because it's kind of a weird way to contrast it. So, I'm going to talk about these openly, and obviously you guys know it's either between BDS and Vitality. Where do we put them? We don't know. But the interesting thing is in week 6, so not this previous week, but the week before, BDS goes to the grand finals and ends up winning it. They, as I just talked about, beat Top Lokes, they beat Barcelona, and they beat Liquid. A little bit of strength of schedule in their favor on that one, I would say. On the opposite side, it looked like it was pretty difficult. And then in week 7, BDS falters immediately, just like Vitality did in week 6. But now Vitality, who drops down low, makes it all the way back and goes to the grand finals and wins it over Monkeys, with wins over Monkeys, Triple Trouble, Guild, and some other ones along the way. So again, it feels like strength of schedule favors both of these guys all the way to the grand finals, going through lowers and then kind of battling their way through. But results-wise are the antithesis of each other. In week 6, benefits BDS. In week 7, benefits Vitality. So ultimately, it kind of makes sense for me to just keep them neutral. So we're going to keep them the exact same. And I hope you guys agree with that argument. I think BDS still currently is showing like they were the best team in Europe. But you could basically tie these two for that spot. Both have shown results. I think the biggest nod to BDS is obviously they have both regional wins, and they've shown that now they can also win in the grid, which is something they struggled with earlier on, and you can see that difference with Vitality winning 3 of them and BDS only winning 1. So again, I think BDS obviously is the best team in Europe right now due to consistency in their performances, but it shows that even at the very top of Europe, teams can bleed, both Vitality, both BDS, and everybody else in between, which is really exciting and why it makes, I think, Europe so entertaining. We've talked a lot about this in detail, about the situation of why they put so much emphasis on the field and don't just spend that hour practicing against top level teams like North America does. Again, Europe just doesn't really scrim, and I don't get it. We were trying to have a discussion with it in stream today, and that's a whole nother conversation that I'm still trying to find some teams to talk about to provide some information as to why that is. But I do think you would see some of these teams like BDS and Vitality and stuff at the top stop playing down to their competition if they would scrim against the top level teams and stop exposing themselves to some of these other rosters. But again, that's a whole different conversation and something we'll have to save for a future video. But everybody, that is my EU power rankings for this video. If you've made it this far, greatly appreciate it. If you enjoy the content or dislike it, thumbs up or thumbs down. Any interaction on the post is greatly appreciated. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on notifications as we are slowly approaching 25,000 of you, which is greatly appreciated. If you guys have some ideas for the 25K video, drop those down below too. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. But that is going to do it for me. We'll see you for North America Power Rankings tomorrow. Peace.